Well, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Lunch Update, our program to help you stay curious, connected, informed, live, and in real time. This conversation and all of our Lunch Update programs are made possible by our presenting sponsor, Perkins Coie. We'd also like to thank our Accelerate sponsors, Baker Tilly and Easy Office Products. As always, we record Lunch Update and make it available to you at madisonbiz.com. Just give us a few hours and we'll post it. We are aware there are some internet outage issues in downtown. And so if you were not able to log in earlier, just know that you'll be able to see everything when you log in later this afternoon. So if there's anything that you want to relive, discuss, and certainly share out on social media, please feel free to do that again at madisonbiz.com. Today's program will feature updates on everything local, state, and national politics as we head into the August 13th primary election and the fall campaign. Before we get to politics, let's just give you a few chamber updates. This week, we announced, and we're very excited about these finalists, the finalists that are competing in our 11th annual pressure chamber presented by Michael Best. CranioSure, Cubby, Maze, Sideshift, Six Line Semiconductor, and Taro Bioforge are 6 emerging companies that will present and deliver their pitches at the Majestic Theater on August 20th during Forward Fest. All pressure chamber attendees and our all-star panel of national investor judges will combine to choose the winner. So if you come, you get a vote. And that winner will receive a reserve spot on the Chamber's exclusive trip out to the Bay Area and Silicon Valley to meet with investment firms later this fall. You can sign up today. It's free for all members at madisonbiz.com/pressure chamber. For more information about Forward Fest, which is the broader event that we'll be part of, go to forwardfest.com. Also, our 71st annual dinner is coming up on August 15th on Monona Terrace. This is our largest and most impactful program of the year, and it will sell out. Every year we tell you it'll sell out, and then people don't believe us, and then it sells out, and then people wonder why they can't get tickets. In fact, last year's event sold out in 2 months in advance, and it sold out 48 hours from the time that we opened it. I realized I said August 15th, it is October 15th. So you do have time. It's not 2 weeks from now. I'd be in much worse shape if I were trying to get ready for that event in 2 weeks. So October 15th at Monona Terrace. Registration is officially open as of today. So you can go into madisonbiz.com and register for annual dinner on October 15th. Our first guest, Melissa Agard, is a native and lifelong resident of Dane County, including attending Madison East High School and UW-Madison. She was first elected to serve Wisconsin's 16th Senate District in 2020, and following 4 terms in the state assembly. Senator Agard served as the Senate Democratic leader from 2022 to 2023. Her district covers much of the north, east, and south sides of Dane County. Senator Agard also served on the Dane County Board of Supervisors before joining the assembly. And before getting into politics, Senator Agard owned a small business and worked in the private sector. She is a single mom with 4 sons, who she's very proud of, and lives on the Madison's north side. Senator Agard is also the Chamber Board's endorsed candidate for county executive. So thank you for joining us, Senator.
Thank you, Zach.
I almost called you county executive, I guess. But before we get to that, there is a crowded primary with a lot of people with similar campaign issues. So I'm wondering if you could just start off by telling the audience, why are you running for Dane County Executive? What sets you apart from the field of 4?
Yeah, so I was born and raised right here in Dane County, and I'm so proud to raise my 4 amazing boys. As you mentioned, I'm a proud mom of these young people. I have a track record of being an effective and bold leader for our community from the time that I served on the county board through my legislative experience. In fact, just over a year, I served as the Democratic minority leader in the Wisconsin State Senate, and I was unanimously elected into that position by my colleagues. They have a lot of respect for the work that I do and the leadership that I have been able to provide. I've really worked hard to make sure that our community is more fair, that we have opportunities to prosperity, and that folks are able to be safe in their homes and where it is that they work and play. The coalitions that I built over my years of living here and serving the people in the community are unique and they're robust. I'm so proud to be endorsed by County Executive Parisi and County Executive Falk, statewide elected leaders, state Senate colleagues, assembly colleagues, local electeds, the majority of the county board, the chamber, environmental groups, business leaders, advocates, and really looking forward to continue to roll up my sleeves and be the collaborative leader that we need in Dane County as we move into our next chapter.
I think one of the, just as I could build on your endorsement list, you know, for the last dozen years or so, there's been strong alignment between the building trades, the private sector unions, and the chamber. And that continues with you, that you have both the business community's support, but also private sector labor support, which I think speaks volume about who you are as a leader, that both sides of that equation see you as the right person for the future.
To me, it's important. A part of leadership is being able to show up in space, even when you're going to be having hard conversations, to figure out what is it that we agree on? What is the problem that we are trying to solve? And we may have different paths that we want to navigate in order to get to solving that problem. But if we identify that problem and figure out what vocabulary we're going to use, who's missing from that room, we're going to be able to have a more authentic solution at the end. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean we're going to agree with each other all of the time. But we're honoring the process. And in order to make sure that Dane County continues to have as much success as it does right now. People clearly are wanting to live, work, and play here. We are growing when most counties in Wisconsin are shrinking, and there's lots of reasons for that. And it is a super exciting time to be running to become the next Dane County executive here, because we can be thinking about what our legacy is going to look like. Where is it that we want to move our county forward, and how does Dane County lead the state of Wisconsin, frankly, and also be innovative leaders, thought leaders for our nation.
So I want to talk about priorities, right? What do we hope to see done, and what do you hope to focus on? So, as you know, we've got an agenda, an advocacy agenda called Belong. And one of the things that's in there, or two of the things that are in there, one is renaming Dane County Regional Airport to giving it an international designation as part of setting us up for that future that you're talking about of, who do we aspire to be, where are we headed as a community? And then the second is the modernization of the Alliant Energy Center, which is long overdue. You've previously said that you support both of those, but how would you advance those as Dane County executive?
Well, really, the airport has been part of our community, and it is part of how it is that we bring people here, and our families are able to go out and visit other areas of this wonderful world that we live on. And when we have airports in Wisconsin that are in much smaller communities that aren't the hubs of business innovation, state government, the university systems that have international airport designations, and we don't have that, it doesn't help us to continue to build. We know that when we can bring tourists and industry into Wisconsin, we're able to sell ourselves well. So Dane County needs to be that hub. And right now, without having that international designation, we're not doing ourselves any favors. It doesn't harm us to give us that designation, but it plants a flag in the ground and lets people know that we are serious and that we are welcoming. We want to make it easy for people to get here, and for the people that are here to be able to travel outward as well.
One of the other, go ahead. I would say the Alliant Energy Center is certainly one of the other big assets that the county has. It also serves as the gateway to our city and to downtown. How do you envision that coming together? That's no small task.
It's not a small task. It's prime real estate right here in Dane County, and the county is in charge of it. A lot of people don't even realize that to be the case because it's smack in the middle of the city. But there are wonderful things that are happening at the Alliant Energy Center right now, whether it's the World Dairy Expo or our county fair, the ability to go see concerts and other venues. But we're also missing out on a lot of opportunities that want to come here. It would be a darn shame for the state of Wisconsin and frankly the United States of America if the World Dairy Expo didn't continue to come here. And they have been pretty vocal about the fact that we need to meet them in order to make sure that they are still here. When I talk to folks who are leaders when it comes to tourism and travel, the Alliant Energy Center isn't in entertainment and recreation. The Alliant Energy Center, as it currently is not doing us the favors that we need. I look at the opportunities that have opened up in communities like Green Bay and Milwaukee with Titletown and the Deer District. And I think we can have that right here, especially as we're having these conversations as a region on what it is that the lakefront looks like along John Nolan Drive. Having that partnership, having both of these projects happening at a similar time, allowing our community to really vision and dream what can be there. I am excited about that, but I know it's not something that government can do alone. It's going to be very much like I pointed to Titletown and Deer District. We're going to have partnerships on the private sector. Our philanthropic community is going to need to buy into it, and we're going to bring multi-layers of municipal government to the table as well. I see this as an area where people are going to want to go, even if there isn't a big event there. As opposed to when they're driving by thinking, what is it that's happening there right now? The parking lot's awful empty.
Right. And one of the critical issues that I certainly know we agree on, but I want to take a deeper dive into it. The business community has been discussing, championing, and advocating for increasing the supply of diverse workforce housing. And that's not a new issue, right? I mean, you've been here your entire life. You know the challenges. We've seen it develop over time. And elected leaders are, particularly in the executive side, mayors. We recently had all the mayors together from every city in Dane County. They all identified housing as the #1 top issue. But it is an opportunity for county leadership that maybe it's not that the county didn't care about it, but for the first time, maybe there's an opportunity for the county to lead. There's a new report out from the Housing Advocacy Committee at Dane County. The Chamber served on that, staff served on that committee. And the great news is that we added 42,000 households between 2010 and 2020. But we still have work to do, right? There's still, because 42,000 new households, but only 34,000 new units. And now we look at the existing shortage. We came out of the pandemic short. And one of the things that we were researching recently, I wanted to highlight for our conversation, is that in Miami-Dade, they currently have under construction the equivalent of 26% of their existing units. And in Austin, that's 15.7, but here it's 4.4. Right? So we need to just build more. What does success look like for you in that work from a county perch?
Absolutely. So housing is a human right. And right now here in Dane County, so many of our workers don't even live in Dane County. People that work in cities aren't living in those cities. They are living, as you pointed out, in adjoining communities and adjoining counties. Dane County did go to work and put together the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy Plan that you mentioned. You were at the table. We had municipal leaders, consumers, the builders, the real estate community, and so many other people. And that plan set 7,000 new housing units every year for the next 5 years in order to level the playing field. And then we need to keep going. Dane County has been a leader in pulling that together. Olivia Perry, a county employee, was the person who led that conversation. And clearly we're going to continue leading in for the next 5 years, ensuring that we're not having any off-ramps for people. And we need to have housing of all stock. As you pointed out, affordable housing, when I talk to mayors and people that live across Dane County, different people define affordable housing as different things. And that's one of the really important parts of this regional housing strategy, is it helps define how we're going to take care of our seniors and transitional housing there. What are we going to do to under the poverty level? How is it that we embrace students and young people in our communities, because we want folks to come to college here? How's the people that are working at Epic and that will work in our tech hub that is going to be here? Really, I see the county executive and the role of the county as being a convener, a truth teller, and a strong partner, ensuring that we're removing barriers and providing opportunities for thoughtful housing that matches the needs that are right here in Dane County. We need to make sure that we're addressing other needs in our community that meet families' pocketbooks, whether it's quality childcare, affordability, access for that, so people can actually have the opportunity to go to work, removing that barrier, and increasing wages for people across our whole entire state and right here in Dane County, ensuring if we do have a minimum wage increase, which I've been proud to lead on for so many years, that it does have a provision in it for local governments to increase wages based on cost of living and needs within their communities. The cost of healthcare in the state of Wisconsin is extraordinary, and that is an undue burden on the shoulders of many business owners in Dane County. And if we were to only expand healthcare, we're one of 9 states that hasn't done that at the federal level. That will open up an awful lot of opportunity for business, for families to be able to hold their costs down. And with those policies, as well as increasing the housing stock, supply and demand, I do think we're going to be able to provide many more checks and balances for people who want to live right here in Dane County.
So, Senator, let me transition to childcare. You know, it's one of the maybe the most unseen challenges, unless you're actually writing the check, but it has the same kind of impact that you discussed with housing, healthcare costs. You know, we're certainly proud of some of the work that's been done during the pandemic. County Executive Parisi called the chamber and said, I only have $3.5 million. This is before all the federal money. What should I do with it? We said, just give it to childcare. He said, I didn't realize childcare was such a big piece of the chamber membership. It's not. I think we only have 1 or 2 members that are in childcare, but it is a link to all of our members. Well, how do you see the county's role in childcare? Is there something the county can be doing? There's certainly going to be a public-private responsibility, and it's going to require federal, state, and local dollars. But do you see a role for the county in helping solve this childcare challenge?
100%. I think the county has an important role to play there. The investment in our kiddos, even before they're born, is something that the county does, whether it is through our Birth to 3 programs with outside partners, or what the work that we do directly through human services and public health. If we want to have good people leading our community into the future, we need to be investing in our kids. And I've had the opportunity to know many childcare workers, to be able to meet with many childcare business owners. In fact, Linda, who owns the Learning Ladder out in Cottage Grove, was this person that actually came up and said, this is going to be a problem. And it was before we were talking about it in the Capitol building. We absolutely need to be supporting our childcare industry. And there are many ways that we can do that, whether it is funding it, in collaborative manners with all levels of government, whether it's advocating at the state level for some of that $3 billion surplus to be reinvested. The governor has a wonderful bill, Child Care Counts, that we've been talking about and moving forward, and the chamber has been very active in that policy as well. Leading my caucus as the minority leader, we know that this isn't just something that's happening in Madison or Dane County or Wisconsin. Again, childcare is something we're going to be hearing our presidential candidates talking about, and our congressional candidates as well. And we know that if we are going to move forward as a nation and as a region, that having these deliberative conversations that are bringing people together that maybe didn't realize they needed to be together in the past is how we're going to get it done. Having the building trades thinking about how it is that they're going to provide childcare opportunities for their apprentices and their workers, that's innovation. They want to be partners here. The universities, business owners, we have businesses like ProMega right here in Dane County that already have programs like Woods Hollow. So being able to take models that are successful is important, but we also need to make sure that we're increasing wages for these providers, because so many of the people that own the childcare facilities talk about people love their job. They come to work and they want to do it, but they can get more pay at a local convenience store, a C-store in our communities. And that's not good for our kids. That's not good for our future. So I'm excited to be able to partner with the chamber, the business community, and so many others who care deeply about this in order to make sure that we're doing well for our kids and our future.
So one last question before I ask you the final question, which is on this kind of future proofing. What are the challenges in front of us? Because the success is so apparent, so it gives us a chance to focus on some of the challenges. The last question I have for you is about transportation. There was just a story in today's paper. And what struck me was the county has long been the leader in the discussions around transportation and transit. Think back to Transport 2020. The county was really at the forefront, county board was at the forefront of talking about what the future would look like when it comes to transportation. But now we see it being driven more by the cities, and frankly, with City of Madison at the hub, and then the smaller cities around working through a contractual process. What do you see the county's role or reinstated role in the future of transportation?
So we really need to get back to a point where we can have RTAs in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, there's a reason why the county was a leader, because we believed we were building forward for a statewide regional transit authority possibilities. And then when Governor Walker was elected, that was one of the very first things. I think he hadn't even been sworn in, and he was saying this is dead on arrival. So it was left on the shoulders of our municipalities. And I'm grateful for the work and the leadership that the city of Madison has done here, and their partnership with our surrounding communities. But there's a lot of inequity. There are communities that are bearing a bigger brunt of the dollars in order to invest in these. There are many communities in Dane County that don't have access, even if they wanted to have access, because of dollars or because of where it is that they are located in our community. So we absolutely need to get back to the table, removing barriers for access to regional transit authorities, and do it in a way that brings all levels of government here in Dane County to the table, municipals, as well as the county, in order to make sure that we are not only doing the right thing to get people around, but we're also being cognizant of environmental impacts of too many cars on our roads, and the fact that so many other people want to have multimodal transportation options, whether it's bikes or trails, in addition to buses and other opportunities like trains.
All right, final question before we let you go. I know you got a busy day. So let's presume you have won at least 2 terms. We won't limit you to 2, but we'll just say you've won at least 2 terms. So you've got some time and legacy under your belt. So it's 8 years from now. Looking into your crystal ball, what are you hopeful for? What does success look like for Dane County?
Well, there are some projections out there that in the next 10 years, we're going to surpass Milwaukee County when it comes to population. I'm going to say, if we're talking about 2 terms, that we're pretty equitable when it comes to population growth. And with that growth, we are able to harness those tax dollars that are coming in and invest them wisely into our community. People are still thriving. Unemployment rates are low. Businesses are feeling good. They have well-educated, hardworking people who want to be there. We continue leading on environmental protections in the way that we have since Kathleen Falk and Jill Parisi were there, that we've addressed our lakes. And this is something that we continue to struggle with is water quality. I grew up swimming in these lakes, and now we get notices that our dogs can't even go in the water. And that we've been able to address many of the generational challenges that we have here, whether it's racial disparities, housing, transportation, but we do it with really the ability to lift one another up and be innovative national leaders in that process. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I'm hopeful that everyone goes to vote on August 13th in the primary, and then again on November 5th, and really proud to have the endorsement of the chamber and being able to work with you, not only through this election cycle, but into the future and the benefit of this amazing place that we call home.
Great. Well, Senator, look forward to being able to call you county exec officially, not by accident when I'm logging in. But we're proud to endorse you. I think you're running a great campaign. You have the right message at the right time for the right reasons for this region. And it reminds us what's good about politics. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great. Well, our second guest, Jessie Opoien, covers state government and politics for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. But prior to being at the Journal Sentinel, Jessie served in multiple roles for over a decade at the Capitol Times, including their political reporter, their opinion reporter, and ultimately was the Capitol Bureau Chief. Her past experience includes 2 years as a general assignment reporter up in Oshkosh at the Northwestern. Jessie holds a degree in journalism, mass communications from Iowa State University. Hello, Jessie.
Hey, Zach. You left out my master's degree, but it's okay.
I'll take Eric Greenfield to task, but tell us about your master's degree. Where was it?
It was at Johns Hopkins, actually, and it was in I wrote a thesis on political polarization, which I'm guessing we might be having some conversations about today.
Like from your master's degree till now, this is, either forecasting or we've been dealing with this for a while. But I want to start off with Milwaukee just recently. You're fresh off of covering the RNC, which was in Milwaukee this year. Well, just give us some of your observations now that you've had a little bit of time to digest. What did you observe on the ground there?
Well, I mean, it was obviously a pretty wild time to go in there. First of all, the fact that the DNC was supposed to be there years ago, so it was sort of, they were very prepared for it, very ready for it. But then, the assassination attempt on the former president just a few days beforehand really changed the energy. People were excited. I've covered quite a few Trump rallies at this point in my career, and it just, in many ways, just kind of felt like a continuation of one of those things. But it's not a political observation, but the thing I really heard the most from people is just that they loved Milwaukee and they loved being in Wisconsin, and that the people were nice and the food was good, and I was happy to hear that.
You touched on it, but there's been so much churn in presidential politics right now. Right? I mean, you've got, as you noted, the attempt on former President Trump's life. President Biden drops out. Vice President Harris quickly replaces him as the presumptive Democratic nominee. Is now on the verge of announcing a vice president candidate for the ticket. How do you think that's affected Wisconsin specifically in the past couple of weeks? I mean, what have you on the sort of political observer side and political reporter side seen in that sort of churn? What's bubbling up to the top?
Yeah, I mean, look, Wisconsin's obviously been, in the focus for a while now. I think, Democrats have looked back on the 2016 Clinton campaign and had a lot of regrets about, how much time and investments were put in here. Have learned a lot from that, and we've seen on the Republican side a lot. Trump has campaigned here, more times than I can count at this point. But before President Biden dropped out, I mean, he was here a bunch of times. His top officials were here a bunch of times, both on the campaign and the official side. And I think what we're seeing now is, I mean, look, the place where Kamala Harris basically, launched her campaign, it was West Allis. So no one's taken Wisconsin for granted. And I think at this point we're seeing just a lot more energy and enthusiasm on the Democratic side, and then probably just like a little like kick in the pants for Republicans to realize like, oh yeah, the Democrats are fired up now.
Yeah, we were recently in DC and we had a meeting booked with Bloomberg News. And we walked in, and right when we walked in, the security guard said, "Oh, you hear from Dane County," and like ushered us through. And I turned to our team and said, "Interesting, they said Dane County and not Madison." We walked into the room and there were 9 reporters and editors, including the managing editor of Bloomberg News. And I immediately knew we weren't there to talk economy. We were there to talk politics. Right? Yeah. It is an interesting moment for Wisconsin to be kind of the center of the political universe. And I think political junkies and reporters and pundits, one of the things that makes it exciting is when there are twists and turns, right? Like a mundane, run-of-the-mill, everything's predictable campaign isn't fun to cover, and it isn't fun to observe. But now we have like this massively unpredictable moment where it feels like every day is some new twist and turn. How does your job change in those moments? How are you waking up every day thinking about what you're going to cover? What's the next byline? What's the next storyline? What's the next lead?
I mean, it's always that way to a certain extent, and that like even when I'm not covering a presidential campaign, I'm covering like the state legislature, there are still a lot of days where you go in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna like go to these committee hearings and I'm gonna cover like this vote, and then something else happens and just totally takes you off the rails. So it's not an unfamiliar feeling. It's just amplified to such a large level right now. So yeah, going into the convention, the Trump rally before it changed everything. Coming out of the convention, Biden dropping out changed everything. There was Senator Tammy Baldwin was holding an event in Stoughton on that Sunday that I probably would not have been covering since I had just gotten back from the convention. But because the president dropped out of the race, I spent my Sunday afternoon in Stoughton. So it's just a lot of like quick adjustments, I think. And it's fun, it's exciting, and I'm not much of an adrenaline junkie in the ways of like getting on a roller coaster, but I think where I get that from is the twists and turns of covering politics.
If we think, you brought up Senator Baldwin and Eric Hovde. It's kind of the other big race here in the fall. That one, I think maybe 3-4 months ago, people saw wouldn't be competitive, and all of a sudden it appears to be competitive. What do you make of that? I mean, Tammy Baldwin came into the election seemingly in a very popular position, and now the numbers at least show a much tighter race than local or national pundits were expecting. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think she is just traditionally a really strong competitive candidate. She's been able to win in areas that Democrats don't traditionally do very well in Wisconsin. But the headwinds against Democrats this year are pretty strong. Inflation is high. People are concerned about the border. And that obviously makes the race a lot tighter. I also saw, though, that she brought in $2.5 million. She raised $2.5 million in just the last month. So, I think there's momentum still with the campaign, but it certainly, I think she's probably going to fare better than she would have had Biden stayed on the ticket, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think that's an interesting observation. Anything that you feel that feels different this year from previous campaigns that you've covered on the Senate side? Anything, or any statewide, anything that you just look out on the horizon, you say the state is the state, the politics of the state are the politics of the state, but are there things that you look at and say, this just feels kind of different at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, so like the Senate races that I've covered have been like the Feingold Johnson races, and then the 2 Baldwin races. And I think I could feel in 2016 that Ron Johnson was going to do well. And just from getting out there and going to events, and that probably should have been an indicator that also like Donald Trump was going to win and Hillary Clinton was going to lose. But I could feel where that Senate race was going. Similarly, in Baldwin's last race, there was such a bruising primary with the Republicans. It was just, everyone came out of that just kind of banged up and not really ready to head into a general election. So this is different in that Republicans kind of cleared the field. They got out of the way for Eric Hovde. He didn't have to go through that tough primary process. And, that always makes it tougher for the other candidate.
Yeah. Something that Senator Agard touched upon is Dane County's growth, right? So Dane County population growth has been explosive. It's leading the state, and frankly, for urbanized regions, so top 15, top 20 cities, is leading the entire Midwest in growth. And that significant growth has also come with growth in Democratic voters, right? So we're seeing raw number growth, but if we just look at the last statewide election, which was not a federal election, but it was still a statewide election, we saw an 82-18 vote differential in the Supreme Court race. And you hear this a lot, that people will say President Biden won Wisconsin by 21,000 votes. So that's the universe we need to be thinking about, whatever side you're on. And what we've been saying to both leaders in the state, but also to those outside of the state, but Dane County added 29,000 residents in that same time period. And the other parts of the state that are traditionally red did not grow anywhere near. In fact, many of them lost population. So your gap is actually probably double what you thought it was coming out of the 2020 election. But then we hear there might be an enthusiasm gap in Milwaukee, at least while President Biden was in the race, maybe because that was largely an enthusiasm gap within diverse communities. But so you're given these sort of political trends. What do you think it comes down to in November? What is when people start to tune in, what is going to be the thing that makes a difference in the race?
Like the issue or the population or what?
I mean, I was more thinking population, but like,
population?
where do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Dane County is unquestionably the place where you need to win the votes. I would like to see more polling. I mean, like, come back and ask me this after I see maybe 2 more polls looking at the enthusiasm difference, because as you mentioned, I mean, enthusiasm compared to 2020 is down like insane amounts. It's depressing, honestly, to look at. Like, people are just not excited to vote for anyone. So I would like to see, you know, how or if that changes going forward. But yeah, I mean, Dane County is the place now. I think that you have to go to compete. And I think if you look at Waukesha County, sort of similarly going back, like, it is a traditionally red county, but it was also a place where, and it continues to be a place where Democrats need to go to get votes because there are still a lot of Democratic voters there. It's just a populous county. And I think the same thing is kind of true of Dane County. You know, there are Republicans who live here. Republicans can get votes here. But to your point, yeah, that gap just kind of keeps getting wider and wider as more people move here.
Right. Are you going to go to the DNC in Chicago?
I will, yes. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be
yeah.
interesting. Another
I don't
interesting
know. I
one.
mean, they won't have Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt open, which I also got to see. So I don't know how they're going to top that.
I'm sure they'll have their own Hogan-esque moment. But
Yeah.
well, I want to say, Jessie, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know you're crisscrossing the state, but thank you for spending time with us. Especially thank you for stepping in and helping us when some of the internet issues occurred. So appreciate that. And I've been thinking about someday doing one of these around our shared love of bourbon. And so when I put together my all-star panel of bourbon aficionados, I'll make sure
you gotta get me on that.
Absolutely. All right, Jessie, have a great day. Appreciate you. Thanks. Our final guest, and although we are running a little bit behind, so this will be quick, and we'll have to figure out a way to get Mr. Bertler a little more airtime. Dan Bertler is the president and owner of Supreme Structures. He's had that role since 1992 when he founded the company. You know, he's been focused on business development and building and maintaining partnerships and clients, enlisting different resources to make sure the business is successful. But he's got 20 plus years of local partnership experience. Vast community involvement, including serving as the chair of the Chamber's Public Policy Committee this year. Dan, are you there?
I'm here. Thank
Great.
you, Zach.
Well, it's good to see you. So one of the things I want to wrap up, we only have a couple minutes, and I apologize for that. We'll figure out a way to get you a little bit more airtime some other time.
Airtime, Zach. Come on. This is important.
But
conduit.
I know, but we want to talk a little bit about the conduit in the couple minutes that we have. And so for those who don't know, the Chamber has a device called the conduit, which is, I'll just quote what the statute says, is when a person other than the individual that receives the contribution for money and deposits the contribution into an account held by that person releases the contribution to the candidate, political action committee, political party, legislative campaign at the direction of the contributor. So, but to put it in sort of common sense words, business leaders or anyone gives the Chamber a check. We deposit that into a separated account. And then that same person directs us what to do with their money. Then we give the money to the candidate under both the Chamber name and under the individual's name. So when you think about that, as somebody who is both in the conduit, as a conduit holder, but also as the chair of our Public Policy Committee, how do you see the conduit being a benefit to the Chamber?
I personally absolutely love the conduit. I think it's my one-stop shop. Give you an example. Individuals retain control of their contributions while also giving credit to the Chamber. It also shows individuals aligned with the Chamber's priorities. I can give $1,000 check to the conduit. It's my money. I get to select how much money is going to go to which candidate. And it's a savings account, my personal savings account at the Chamber. And I can direct that money accordingly to which candidate I want.
So is there a minimum amount of money that you?
It's $100 is our minimum. I think really what is amazing about the conduit in general, besides account holder retains full control over the candidate campaigns and receive political contributions and how much, right? That's a separate entity. But under Wisconsin law, contributions made through the conduit are treated as an individual, personal contribution, not the Chamber. So as such, account holders are fully recognized for my contribution or their personal contribution. I know we're running low on time or short on time, but the chamber delivers your contribution, ensures that your donations are made in compliance with Wisconsin law, so you don't have to. So big picture, I'll put $1,000 into the conduit under Dan Bertler. I can X 150 here, 250 there. My name gets on it. The chamber issues one lump sum check to that candidate, and they're not dealing with 100 checks or 50 checks. They get one check from the conduit through the chamber. So it's really the one-stop shop.
And quickly, how would someone join the conduit if they were interested in doing it?
I think we have a link that we just put in the chat. If we didn't, David's going to love me for this, but David at madisonbiz.com. Just email David, tell him Bertler sent you. I want to be in this conduit. We're going to grow this thing. We're going to have a blast, and there's a lot of stuff in the near future.
Great. Well, Dan, thanks for joining us today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, Senator Agard, Jessie Opoien, and certainly Dan Bertler for Supreme Structures. I want to thank all of you for spending some time with us despite some of the challenges that we had with connectivity issues. And certainly I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Perkins Coie. And hopefully we'll see some of you this evening at the Madison Nightmares game at Warner Park. Looks like the weather's going to hold off. And if not, we will see you next time right here live on Lunch Update.